Yeah, the Magium would not be happy because we have had many run-ins with it, and Araka especially because the Magium was tracking her. So probably not good. In less than a moment, the blue light from the sphere extends itself in our direction and it completely envelops us. The next thing I know is that I'm floating somewhere in the void without dimensions. Again, we are here, along with all my friends who are looking around themselves very confused. I do not get much time to understand what's happened because after only a few seconds I find myself back in the void where the Magium sent me the first time when it tried to erase me from existence. A feeling of intense fear takes over me as I imagine myself spending another eternity in this place that defies all reason. Just like last time, I feel myself blinking in and out of existence several times in a row, and after every consecutive trip to that world of nothingness, I find myself back in the Magium's realm, together with all my friends who are all sweating something fierce, with looks of sheer terror in their eyes, as they are probably trying to understand what has happened to them. Barry, Kate says, was this the void that you told me about before? I have heard you describe it, but I would have never imagined, never in my worst nightmares, there could be anything like this. What is Araka doing there? And says he is trying to remain very hard to remain calm and rational, despite the obvious tremble in his voice. Why isn't she casting the primordial spell? I'm trying, Araka shouts in the same panicked voice that she had when she told us to run away. I'm trying, but it's not working. I can't target this Magium fragment at all. It's like it's not even there. Once again, I feel myself getting pulled into the void, but now it's worse than it was before. Something tells me that if this happens a few more times, I won't be able to come back. Magium, wait, Flower shouts with obvious desperation in her voice. Petal and I have helped you in the past. We can do it again. Please tell us what we need to do, please. All of a sudden, the blinking in and out of existence stops, and we are left just staring at each other in this nonsensical world that we've been brought into by force. The Magium's realm seems even more absurd now than the last time when I visited it with Araka during the God of Time's ritual. I think it triggered Magium last time when we were shouting curses at it. I think it was that case. I don't remember exactly what triggered it. It's not like Araka's existence triggers the Magium or anything. Well, her actions have done that, but I think she was just shouting curses at it or something. The geometry of this place does not fit any rules that could be describable through words. Logically speaking, there are no dimensions here, but I can still easily distinguish between each of my friends, even if their shape have no outlines. What? Logically speaking, there are no dimensions here. I can still easily distinguish between each of my friends, even if their shapes have no outlines. The time feels like it flows forward but also backwards. For example, I'm quite certain that we have only been through this whole ordeal once, but in my mind I've experienced these events multiple times, including in reverse and in non-chronological orders. I don't get to analyze this much further because the Magium finally decides to respond to Flower, although his voice seems to be changing its timbre and tonality with each new phrase, that is, speaks as if it were a different person each time. In the past you may have helped, I hear the voice of an old man, but in the present you have not, the Magium continues, now in the voice of a young woman. The prophecy has already been delivered, I hear a adolescent boy. You should know full well what must be done, says the voice of a little girl. We don't, Flower says in an anxious tone. We really don't. We haven't even figured out who the two old enemies clashing are supposed to be yet. I mean, I guess we're kind of expecting one of those enemies to be Aiden, and since he pretty much spelled it out for us, but we're still not sure who the other. Then you already have your answer, a woman interrupts Flower in a soft-spoken voice. In order for many lives to be saved, a single sacrifice is sometimes required. We now hear the voice of a small child who's barely able to articulate his words. A sacrifice. Aiden, Flower says in a somewhat fearful tone. You want us to kill Aiden? The prophecy must not be allowed to come to fruition, says a man in a high-pitched voice. If you seek further guidance, the one called Meredith should be able to help you. We hear the voice of a wise old woman. Do not fail again, now says an old man in a loud, angry voice. With these last words, the Magium sends us out of its realm in the fraction of a second. Then we find ourselves once again standing in front of the room with the sphere of blue light, as everyone is looking around themselves in a state of temporary confusion. Astonishing. Meredith says when she sees that we have returned. I've talked to our creator many times in the past, but he has never granted me the honor of inviting me to his own realm. I assume that this is what happened. You all entered some sort of trance with your eyes shining brightly, just like it's been described in our old legend. So surely it must be true. Yes, Darren says. We did go to the Magium's realm. We are saying that you don't know this would happen. No, I had no idea, Meredith says. I'm sure that you have a lot to discuss in private after this life-changing experience, so I will leave you alone for a few minutes while I prepare the meeting room at the end of the next corridor. When you're done gazing at our creator's magnificent earthen form, you can close this door by tapping on it 5 times in a row. I'll be waiting for you in the room at the far end of the tunnel, but there is no rush. Take your time. Darren says, we'll take our time, definitely. Diane, I'm going to need some help with preparing the conference room. Meredith says, will you accompany me, please? Yes, of course, she says as she begins to follow Meredith down the corridor while waving at us. See you guys later. As Meredith and Diane leave, the rest of my friends seems to be having a great effort to calm themselves down, right? Unlike this ended fairly fast for them, so they should be fine. But our character went through that like a whole thing for an eternity, kinda, the last time this happened. But at that time he had the mental thing where fear was not such a big deal, or I think he let that go. I don't know when he let that go after that event. Maybe after that event he was still under the guise of that, so I suppose he was fine to some extent. As Meredith and Diane leave, the rest of my friends seems to be making a great effort to calm themselves down. In the meantime, for some reason I can't help but feel myself being drawn towards this blue sphere of light. It's like there is this invisible force pulling me closer to it. Despite the incredible danger that I've just been put through, the price of the tournament is right there in front of me. Could I possibly let this opportunity pass me by? I never thought that there would be a Magium node so deep below the surface. I hear Arka talking in the background. I was careless. I should not have let my guard down with all these ceridium walls around me blocking my magical sense. What is a Magium node? Hardrick says. The big sphere of solid light. Is that what it is called? Yes, Arka says. There are several of these scattered throughout the continent of Orathia. They're all linked together, that's why they're called nodes. Currently, there are more or less evenly split between the major powers of Orathia. So suppose it would make sense that Lasethi would have one too, even if they're keeping it a secret. The major powers of Orathia, then says, like who? Tyrath, Aiden, the Golden Fox? Yes, those 3, plus the kings of Orathia and also Phyron. I forgot who Phyron was. Wait, is Phyron the goblin? Maybe? I don't know. Haruka says, the reason why they're so evenly split is because you don't really need more than one node to access the Magium. There were enough of them lying around for every major player to obtain at least one without any need to fight over them. Also, they were really well hidden, so it's not like, Barry, what do you think you're doing? Dylan says, get away from there. While the others are talking, I had been slowly getting closer and closer to the mysterious sphere of the light until I have gotten near enough to be able to touch it. Now to see it up close, I realize the sphere is bigger than me, and the pitch black center around with the solid blue light constantly rotates is made up of pure darkness. Somehow, despite all the bright light spinning around it, the darkness is left completely intact, even though it should make no sense from a logical point of view. Does it look like a black hole or something? But why would it be black? Black holes are not black. Well, I suppose it's not a black hole. The size of the sphere is truly mesmerizing. I feel like I can barely take my eyes off it. Darren shouts, Don't do something you'll regret. Back away slowly. He actually went to the node. Arka says, touch it, you loser. I dare you to touch it. I'm actually going to touch it, even though that's probably going to kill our character, but I'm going to save before that. Touch the Magium node. I ignored Darren's warning and touched the blue sphere of darkness light with my right hand. Suddenly, billions of images, voices appear in my head at the same time, and for a moment I get the feeling that I understand everything that there is to know about the universe. However, even though the knowledge seems to be right there within my reach, it also seems very far away, as if I could take an infinite amount of steps towards it. The distance between us would remain the same. Quickly take my hand out before I am overwhelmed by an immense amount of information that is being flooded into my brain. And then all of the knowledge goes away almost as fast as I obtained it. That being said, I definitely feel different from how I was before I touched the sphere. The knowledge itself might not still be there in my head, but there is still something. I feel like the root of the information is still somehow present in my mind, as if the very origin of these ideas could not be extracted from my mind once I stopped touching the sphere. So it was just abandoned there in my head. If only I could find some way to reconstruct the rest of the details just from what I have left.